guys, and welcome to this first video, which is going to be an introduction to drawing. Now, if you've been drawing for years, or you feel like you're an experienced drawer, or you've barely ever drawn, right, and you're really intimidated by this, I want you to approach what I'm going to discuss today in these exercises with an open mind, and know that no matter where you are in your artistic abilities, these exercises are only going to make you a better artist and a better drawer. Right? Because even if you've been drawing for a very long time, you can always get better and you can always refine some of these really key fundamentals, okay? And if you've never drawn before, then just come out again with an open mind, have fun with it, and just know that over time you will get better, things will feel more comfortable, and hopefully you can enjoy drawing and not kind of get too nervous about it. So for today, all you're gonna need is a sketchbook. If you don't have a sketchbook, some paper, even computer paper will be fine. And I want you to get a number 2 pencil, okay? A well-sharpened number 2 pencil. Don't worry about having an eraser, okay? I'm gonna talk about that later, but I don't even think you need an eraser in the beginning. And I don't want you to have a mechanical pencil. Mechanical pencils can be used in drawing. I know I use them sometimes, but you don't really wanna rely on that because that tool was not meant for artists. It was meant for people, to write, to take notes and use in other classes. So all you need is a regular number 2 pencil. Even if you've been drawing for a very long time and you have all those supplies, that's awesome. Those are great. I'm going to talk about them in a later video. For today, I just want you to have the bare minimum, okay? So just a regular number 2 sharpened pencil. The other thing you're going to need is some objects, some simple objects. Now, I have the luxury of being in the art room, so I have a little more accessible to me. You're going to need some basic objects like I have these little cubes, sphere, cone. I got that at Michael's. You get like a craft store. By all means, you don't need to go out and buy these. If you have a little sibling that has some blocks, something bigger, not like Legos, but like anything like that, just look around your house to see what you have. And then you're also going to need maybe a little bit more complex objects. So I have like a glass, candlestick. Go raid your kitchen, see what you have. Avoid things that are really detailed. Avoid things that are transparent, things like glass. Those are going to be adding extra challenges to you, okay? Things like this. Now you're probably wondering, I don't want to draw these objects. I'd rather just draw something from my imagination. Imagination is great, okay? It's awesome to draw from your imagination. But this is building those fundamentals of drawing. And observational drawing, meaning drawing from what you're observing from real life, is one of the most challenging drawing skill sets, and it's also the one that will improve all of your artistic abilities, right? So whether you are into graphic, more cartoon style art, or maybe you're into drawing from photography, if you can refine and get better at observational drawing, all those other skill sets are only going to get better, okay? So trust me, you need for this things that you can draw from real life, okay? And don't take on things that are too challenging. They may not be the most interesting objects, that's okay, okay? You're gonna be drawing a lot of them, we're not gonna be spending too much time on all of these things, so don't overthink it, okay? So that's all you need material-wise. Next, what I want to talk about is just trusting the process, okay? So especially in the beginning, people are either too nervous to start drawing, or as soon as they start drawing, they start second-guessing themselves, or they think this is such a weird exercise, why am I doing this, there's no point, and they kind of want to rush through and really get to like making a really awesome drawing. Trust me, you will get there, okay? But it's like anything, right? You gotta stretch before you can start working out and starting to run. Right? If I took you guys right now and said, go run a marathon, you would probably all fail, right? You'd be huffing and puffing after maybe a few steps, maybe a mile, who knows, right? So I really want to take you guys through these warm-up exercises to make sure that you are successful so that when you take on more complex drawing projects, you can take them on with pleasure, right? Your hand's not going to be sore, you're not going to go into a panic mode, and you can really find pride in what you create. Right? Because at the end of the day, art should be fun. So that's the other thing I really want to make sure that comes across, okay? So if you feel like, oh, I don't want to open up my sketchbook, I don't want to draw today, then take a step and back and think about, okay, what am I doing wrong? Because I really do want you to enjoy drawing. Even if art is not going to be your future path or that's what you're going to pursue, I really want to make sure that while you are drawing, you are enjoying the process, okay? And so I'm going to talk about the different techniques. One thing that I see happen often is people's hands get sore. Like, oh, I'm so tired, my hand's tired from drawing. You should be, hypothetically speaking, be able to draw for hours on end without your hand getting tired, okay? So if things like that happen, you're doing something incorrectly. And that's what a lot of these basic exercises are gonna try to teach us, right? Is how to correctly hold a pencil, how to just start things off correctly and with a good mindset. But at the end of the day, we all get tired, right? So if you want a break, take a break, right? Take a break, walk around, do something else, and then come back to it, okay? Because I hope that art can always be something that you can experience with a positive attitude, okay? So with that being said, let's begin. Okay guys, so before we begin, the first thing I want to reiterate is consistency, okay? The more you draw, the better you're going to get, right? So it's like anything in life, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at whatever you're doing, okay? I'm saying this because although I'm going to go pretty quickly through some of the exercises in this video today, I want you to take your time, okay? If something's not working out, do it over and over and over again, okay? And don't think of it as time wasted, right? It's time you're putting in at improving a skill set, right? You're not going to take a language class and expect to be able to speak that language the next day. It's the same thing with drawing, okay? So consistency, consistency, consistency. The more you draw, the better you're going to get. Okay, so the first thing we need to talk about is controlling of the hand, okay? So how you hold a pencil and how you control your hand is very, very important because this is what's going to prevent your hand from getting tired, which I see happening all the time, okay? When you're writing something, right, so let's say, can't see me there, can you? So as I'm writing, you can see how my fingers are bent, right? This is not how I draw. And most people will hold a pencil like this while they are drawing. This is why sometimes if you're writing an essay, your hands start to get tired, right? Because we're putting so much pressure on our fingers and our joints, right? And we just can't do it very long. Nowadays we have laptops, we type things, right? So you're not really writing for a very long period of time. Drawing, on the other hand, you could spend a very long time doing that, okay? So it's really important that we adjust how we hold a pencil when we draw and not do it the same way as we write. Sometimes, yes, you may hold your pencil like this, but other times maybe it'll be like this. Some people hold it like this. Some people hold it between these fingers. How you hold your pencil is going to be dependent on you. Really, I'm not there to kind of help you, and you're going to feel it once it feels right. Honestly, you'll just know. If at any point during this video, any of the exercises you're doing, your hand gets tired, right? Or it feels like kind of tense, like maybe like this pointer finger is gonna feel weird, or it's getting just tired or sore, whatever. If at any point that happens, stop. Stop what you're doing and readjust, okay? Hold the pencil differently. Try different ways, okay? Keep doing that until you feel like you have a good control of the pencil and that you could maintain that for a very long period of time, okay? Now, yeah, holding the pencil like this is very relaxed. I could do this for hours. You don't have control like this, right? It's all flimsy. So you do need to have some form of control of your pencil, but not to the point of like this when you're writing something, okay? So let's begin these first exercises. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to pretend that there is an imaginary kind of square, okay? And you're going to just draw dashes the same size and equally spaced apart, filling up your imaginary square. Now, why am I making you do this? Because to draw a dash the exact same size and equally spaced apart, right, that involves control. Now, do you see how I'm holding my pencil right now? Just like I did when I was writing. That's fine, right? Because I'm just doing this little thing. But I'm going to show you in a second how that approach is not going to work for all forms of mark making, okay? But you can see they're all about the same size and they're all equally spaced, okay? If you can do that, awesome, move on to the next thing. So the next thing that I want you to do is now do the same imaginary square, but you're going to do vertical lines. And they should be the exact same length, equally spaced, and they should be straight lines. You can see here I'm not using a ruler, right? Maybe I'll put one in between all of these just to make it more filled. Making a perfect straight line is something that's people struggle with all the time, right? So this is actually a very good exercise. The more you do it, the better it's going to get. If this one didn't work out, don't erase it. You're wasting time with this eraser. Instead, just go below the one you just drew and do it again. Okay? And if you notice, I just held my pencil differently doing the second one than I did the first one, right? I can hold my pencil in many different ways. So just know that it's not just like one size fits all in terms of how you hold your pencil. It can adjust, it can change, right? But see what works. And if you notice, actually, my second one looks better than this top one. There's a little weird line right there, okay? Once you've mastered this, now I want you to do the same thing, horizontal lines, okay? And again, straight, right? So I'm not doing like a random line like that, right? Straight across, equally spaced. One line shouldn't be darker than the other, right? Because then that means you're putting more pressure with your pencil on one line than the next, okay? That's it, right? If that works, awesome. Move on to the next point, okay? The next thing you're gonna do now is it diagonally, okay? Now here it gets a little tricky. So I'm gonna do a line in the middle first to kind of give me a little boundary for my square. And then now I'm going to move across this way. And same thing, right? Now here the lines are getting smaller, but there's still same pressure, right? My middle line's actually a little bit darker and equal spacing, right? Now you're probably thinking, but can I just change my page, do things like this? Yes, you can do all of those things. You can do a ruler when you're doing all of these things, right? But that's not going to get it's not going to improve your ability to control your hand, right? So that's what we're working to do. Once you've gotten this down, right, then I want you to do the same thing, but now different direction. So now our diagonal line is going to go this way, okay? And now we're going to go up right here, and then down right here. Okay? So these basic 5 warm-up exercises, think of it kind of like a stretch, okay? Do this as many times as you need to, right? If the first time you did this, you're like, oh, this is a piece of cake, awesome, okay? But then maybe when you started doing these, your lines are kind of just like a little jaggedy, like this, because it's kind of hard for you to keep a perfect straight line, right? Or kind of moves randomly. I want you to keep doing this, right? And if while you're doing this, your hand's getting tired, look at your hand. Take a look. How are you holding your pencil, okay? Figure out different ways, right? Maybe you need to relax your hand a little bit, right? Maybe you need to move your arm position, right? You can't, if you notice, I didn't draw all of these at this perfect position, right? I wasn't like kind of stuck with my arm attached to my body. I moved my arm around, right? And I want you to get comfortable doing that as well. Because drawing is not just from your hand, right? It's actually primarily from your arm, okay? Which I will show you next. So after you've done these, we're gonna go on to making circles, okay? So with circles, what I want you, and circles is another thing. Circles and lines, people are kind of like, oh, how can I make a perfect circle? Sure, you can go trace something, you can use a compass, but I'd rather you get good at just drawing a circle with your hand, okay? So you're just gonna draw a bunch of circles. So I'm gonna show you the difference between drawing from your wrist and drawing from your arm. Now, this is a zoom in, so you can't really see my wrist or my arm very well, but you're gonna see the difference visually, okay? So when I'm drawing with my wrist, and I'm actually going to, let's do this. We'll flip to a new sheet. Go like that. Okay, so you can see my arm a little better. So when you're drawing from your wrist, that means all the movement is really just coming from here, right? Because my wrist is sitting on the paper, and all the movement I'm going to do is just coming from my hand. So, and I'm going to move my hand up a little bit more, right? So see, like sometimes my hand's down here, sometimes I'll be up a little bit on my pencil, and I'm going to just draw a circle. It's fine, okay? Maybe I'll try making it a little better. Okay. Now it's a little challenge, like sometimes maybe you'll draw it, right, and it'll kind of curve down like this, right? So keep doing it, right? Keep trying to draw a circle. And the goal is they're similar sizes. Don't worry about the spacing between them, but they're pretty much all the exact same size circle, right? Now if you start getting ones like these, right, that's where I want you to keep fixing it, keep doing it, but it's one seamless line, okay? Bigger circles are a little different. You can't really do a big circle like that, right? It takes a couple motions. But this was all with my wrist. Now I want you to see the difference is if I draw with from my arm. Now if you can see here, right, so with my wrist it's kind of like this, and my wrist is kind of glued to the paper. When you're drawing from your arm, which you're going to do often, your whole wrist, arm, and hand moves together in sync, okay? You have way more control that way. So if you're only drawing all the time from your wrist, right, the level of mobility you have is very limited, right? And so that's where lines, you don't have as full control. As soon as you include your arm, right, I can move around much more, right? So just always be very aware of that. So here's back to our circles. These were all with my wrist, and I'm going to show you when I'm going to draw them with my arm. Okay, well, probably not much, they're a little bigger, some are actually a little worse. Well, you know, you can kind of see, it's a little different, right? So with circles, I guess, not that big of a difference. You can see here, this last one I did, pretty awesome compared to some of these other ones up here. But I obviously, even with my arm, I still made some mistakes, right? And this is something I also want to make sure I reiterate. I've been drawing for years, right? Even as a professional artist. That does not mean that I'm absolutely perfect in anything I do, right? It's just like a stretch. Maybe some days I can bend down and touch my toes and touch the floor. Other days, maybe barely, right? It's like anything. When you come back to it, it's always, this is why you need these little warm-up exercises, right? It's just a way to warm up your hands. I unfortunately probably should have drawn a little more maybe before I did this practice, but you get an idea, okay? So those are your warm-up exercises, right? Those different lines, and then trying practicing these circles. But again, at any point, if your hand gets tired, right, stop and figure out how you're holding your pencil and try different approaches, right? Try working from your arm versus your wrist. So figure out how you're holding the pencil, right? I tend to hold my pencil like this, a little more relaxed motion, and I tend to draw a lot from my arm rather than my wrist. I usually use my wrist only for small, detailed things like that, okay? So go ahead and try those out. Now that you've done some warm-up exercises, which you of course don't have to do every single day when you're about to draw, but if you are at the beginning stages, I would highly recommend that you do something like that, right? Do something that is not just doodling or just random scribbles. It's something that involves controlled line making, right? Because when you're doing those controlled lines, it's really warming up that control of your hand. Now the next thing that we need to work on is your eyes, right? How do you control your eyes? Which is a weird thing to even say, right? But this is the thing. When most people begin to draw, and especially observational drawing, right? Drawing things from life. When they're drawing those things, they're not actually, even though they're looking at them, right? And they're looking at these things and they're saying, I'm drawing this cone, I need to draw this cone. They don't spend that much time looking at it. And if you spend the majority of the time when you're drawing staring at your paper, you're not actually drawing this object, you're drawing your memory of that object. So what you think that object looks like. Now your mind plays tricks on you all the time, right? You need to know how to control that. So the whole point now is going to be how to match what you see to what you draw. And to do that involves a rapid kind of eye movement. You're constantly looking at your object, looking at your paper, looking at your object, looking at your paper. And it's like quick, almost like blinking. You know, you're back and forth, back and forth. If you get too glued down to your paper and you're drawing and drawing away, you are no longer drawing what is in front of you and what you were looking at, okay? So just be really aware of that. Just like before, I was telling you to be aware if your hand's starting to get tired, if you're feeling like, you know, something's not comfortable with how you're holding the pencil. I want you to have the same awareness now, right? So if you feel like, oh wait, I think I've spent like 5 minutes staring at my paper, stop, right? Because at that point, you've dedicated so much time to your drawing already, you're less likely to fix it, which is the other issue, right? The more and more people work on a drawing, the less likely we are to ever fix it. Another reason I don't like these erasers, right, is because especially in the beginning, we want everything to look perfect, right? We want every little thing, every little line we make, we want every little circle, everything, every little mark to look good, okay? Try to throw that mindset away. And instead, think about drawing lightly, right? So again, back to that pressure and control of your hand and the pencil. The lighter you draw, if you make a mistake, you can draw over it, right? If you put a lot of pressure down and all of your lines are really dark, then you're gonna wanna erase it. If you see something that's incorrect, you're gonna wanna erase it, you don't wanna look at it. So learn to draw very lightly, and that way if you need to fix something, which you're gonna have to do, everyone makes mistakes, right? I make mistakes, I'll make mistakes today when I'm drawing with you guys. When you make a mistake, rather than relying on your pencil, just draw a little bit darker to fix that line, right? And especially with observational drawing, if you look at professional artists or any, not even matter professional, if you just look at and just Google observational drawing sketches, right? Not like finished artworks. You'll see there's lines all over the place, right? There's always a ton of lines everywhere because artists have to constantly go over and fix what they are seeing, okay? So just remember to keep the eyes moving, right? Draw what you're seeing, not what you think you're seeing, okay? And to draw lightly, right? The other thing I want you to do is draw big, okay? So I have my sketchbook right here. If you, whatever surface you're working on, I want you to use up the whole thing. So don't just pick the middle of the paper and draw this tiny little drawing. Don't do that, okay? Use up the whole piece of paper, draw as big as you can. The reason I want you to do that is it's easier to actually fix things, right? I understand you're changing the scale, right? The size, right? So this thing, right, if I draw on my paper, it might be even bigger than it needs to be. That's okay. The reason you're drawing it bigger is it's easier to fix things. The smaller a drawing is, the harder it is to fix things, right? So try to get out of that comfort zone and draw bigger. If you're sitting in a chair and you're feeling cramped and you can't really draw big, right? Because to draw big, what do you have to use? You have to use your arm. You can't rely just on your wrist, right? I'm standing right now, right? So maybe you need to stand up. Maybe you don't need to sit. Maybe the seat that you're sitting, like if you're sitting on the couch, probably not an ideal location. Maybe you need to be sitting in a more firm chair, right? Maybe you're sitting on the floor. Maybe the floor actually works for you. Maybe you need to stand. Play around with that, okay? Because you don't want to just start in one way and think, okay, this is how I want to just draw, right? I'm always going to draw sitting on the floor with my sketchbook in my lap. That may work for you at some point, but maybe it's not, okay? So really play around with where you're sitting, how you're holding the pencil, the objects that you're using, right? Be flexible with adapting, okay? Because right now we're in the beginning stages. And even if you've drawn forever, right? And you're like, I know everything that you're saying right now. I've gone through all this. I've refined my technique. Guess what? It can still get better, okay? So do all of this and then really be nitpicky. Judge yourself, figure out, okay, wait, where can I really improve? Because guess what? We can always improve, okay? So let's begin. Okay, so I have some objects placed in front of me, and now I'm going to just do a quick basic sketch of their shapes, okay? Just the main shapes that are visible. So like break it down to the basic shape that you see. A square, a circle, a triangle, maybe it's a weird shape that you don't have a name for, but the basic shapes that you see. And most things that we look at are made up of those basic shapes. Basic shapes are much easier for our minds to identify and for our hands to capture, right? Trying to understand how to draw a perfectly detailed candlestick is a pretty complex thing for your mind to understand, right? But instead, if you tell yourself, I'm going to be drawing a series of kind of oval and ellipse shapes, right? Your mind and your hand can handle that, okay? So just look at wherever you're drawing and try to identify, okay, what are the basic shapes that are there? And the first thing you're gonna do is just draw that, and it should be quick, right? You're gonna use your entire arm to fill up this space and draw that basic object, right? So for me, I'm gonna draw my half sphere that's in front of me. Okay, right, and you can see I was moving my arm around, right? And then I have my half sphere shape, which looks probably like nothing to you right now, right? That's not a great drawing, but that is a basic start to this, right? This is a very simple object, right? You're probably, that's really boring, why would I ever want to draw that? But guess what? You can make any drawing really interesting. That's not what we're doing right now. We're just doing warm-up exercises, okay? So just try doing that and capturing those basic shapes. And when you're capturing those basic shapes, okay, you're capturing the contour line. So the contour lines are the edge of an object, right? So don't worry about things that are like on the inside, right? For some reason, like some of those details, or if there's like edges and things that go like, and the things that recede in or kind of protrude out, don't worry about that. You're just worrying about those basic contour lines, the basic outlines of the main shapes that make up the object that you were drawing. What you want to talk about is ellipse. So an ellipse is kind of like an oval shape, right? Now, many objects have round sections, right? This cup has this candlestick has this, they both have round bases, right? Many things, especially objects you're going to pull, they're going to have this shape. Now, a circle is how we look at it when it's directly in front of us, right? As soon as it's standing on a surface, this circle is no longer a circle, and we have to draw it as an ellipse, okay? So you have to keep that in mind while you're drawing circles. So whenever anything that has circles on it, right? So if it's a circle, maybe you're not drawing a circle, but you actually have to draw an ellipse. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the objects that you are drawing. So with circles and ellipse, right? So we talked about this mug, right? And the fact that it's a perfect circle, right? But because when it's standing, we're looking at it this way, you're going to draw it as an ellipse, right? So if you're drawing something like the basic shape of a cup, right? You're not going to draw it like this. Right? And then draw this thing down here. Okay? That's a fail. Nope, sorry. But at the same time, it makes total sense because in our minds, we know that this is a circle. It is a circle. So we're drawing a circle. We know this bottom of this cup is a circle. So we're drawing it as a circle right down here. But that is not how you have to draw it, right? Because our vision is different. When we're looking at something straight on, that circle is actually going to turn into an ellipse. This is one of those few shapes that actually transforms whatsoever. Most of the shapes you're drawing are not going to do this, but this is the key one that people always mess up on, especially in the beginning. So instead of doing it as a circle, right, you're going to draw it as an ellipse, right? So an ellipse, kind of like an oval, okay? But what's different, right, also you have to keep in mind is that these parts of the ellipse are rounded, right? So you don't want to draw it like a diamond or like a eyeball, okay? Oops. So you don't want to draw it like this, right? You want it to be rounded, okay? So then we have our ellipse, right? Then we would draw the base of the mug, basic shape, right? And you can see on this mug, there's not really a line that goes all the way down here, right? It kind of is, it's a seamless curve that curves over. But I am drawing this line right now because I'm just breaking this up into basic shapes, okay? And then draw the stem. And again, this round piece is going to be another ellipse. And you can see the difference between these two drawings now, right? Not so good. This, oh, nice, right? Looks like an unbelievable mug. Now this is where, right, I want you to do this for a lot of your objects, right? So pick up a bunch of objects and just do these basic outline sketches. Don't worry about shading, right? Shading is when you use your pencil to, how people always say, color things in. It's not coloring in, okay? This is just one pencil, we have no color, right? But shading is when you fill things in. Don't do this yet, okay? Don't worry about this. This is gonna come later in another video, right? I want you to worry about right now is the control of the pencil, matching what you're seeing to what you're drawing, okay? And just practicing drawing a bunch of different things, right? I have my mug and it was sitting here on the, in front of me. Now try drawing it like this, try drawing it like that. Grab a bunch of objects, try drawing them from a bunch of different angles, okay? And then as you're drawing them, I want you to get a little bit more critical, right? So what does that mean? I have my drawing that I drew right here. If I were to draw some dotted lines from the top of my cup to the bottom, right, I would notice that here, the base of my cup matches directly with the edge of my mug here. Here, it does not. I went over, okay? So maybe I need to fix that, right? Maybe I need to go and make this a little darker, right? I'm not erasing. I'm just gonna go a little darker just to fix that. Awesome, right? But is that how it is in real life? I don't know. So this is where your eyesight is going to have to happen, right? You're going to have to take your object and look at it. Look at it from a distance, right? And then draw an imaginary line, right? Kind of with your pencil, looking at your object and figure out, does this edge of my cup line up with the edge of this base, right? Or is there space on both sides? Because even though this drawing looks great, right? Is this actually what the object looks like? Because maybe in reality, it's actually the whole thing is supposed to be much smaller. Right? So then measure things, right? Figure where the middle point is. I like to use objects that are symmetrical, right? Meaning like there's a nice point of symmetry, so that way I can divide my drawing down the middle, right? When I divide it down the middle, I realize, uh-oh, the whole middle part, I didn't do that correctly, right? Why is there all this space here and there's not that space here? right? So maybe I'll go darker on this side to refine that, and then I figure out, okay, I need to go more on this side. Okay, I wouldn't have known that though if I didn't figure out where the middle point of my cup was. Okay, so do that as you're drawing all your different objects, right? Figure out, are there any circles on there that should be an ellipse? Maybe some will stay as a circle, maybe some need to become an ellipse, right? Are there areas that are supposed to be symmetrical, right? Where are things lining up? Where is the middle point on here? And where, most importantly, is the middle point on the actual object, right? Don't get too glued down on your paper. Make sure you look up and actually look at what you are drawing. Okay, so lastly, I'm going to actually take you guys through me trying to draw this cup that's going to be sitting in front of me. Unfortunately, you guys can't see it, but it's sitting kind of in front of my sketchbook. You can see I changed my paper orientation, right? So your paper, almost all sketchbooks, right, there's some that are square, but it's almost all rectangular, right? This object, right, is very vertical in its height, right? So I want to capture that as much as I can, and to do that, I'm going to change the orientation of my paper so it's also vertical. Because remember, I want to draw these as big as I can. I want to take up this piece of paper. I want to give myself some room to really draw things. So as you're drawing your objects, keep in mind, how should I move my paper around, right? If you're drawing very tall objects, are you drawing with your paper horizontally, or do you have it faced vertically, okay? So make sure you're adjusting. And I want you to do this with a ton of different objects. Keep practicing, okay? So I'm going to start. And I want you can fast forward through this, whatever, but at least you can see from the beginning to end of how I'm going to do this exercise for one of these objects. Okay, and this is just a basic start of my object, right? Now you guys can obviously see all the times I was looking up to kind of measure and make sure things were correct, but do you see all these different lines? I started in the beginning with this small little ellipse, but then as I kept looking, I realized this glass is kind of a little funky at the top and has a little more of an opening, right? So I adjusted that, I fixed it, right? Yes, not all of these lines need to be there, but you don't care about that right now. I don't care about that, right? This is just a warm-up exercise, right? I have extra lines here, but I have a ton of lines everywhere. That's what you want, right? You want to have a lot of lines kind of so you can see it. But the only reason I could do all of this is because I started very lightly, right? So make sure you start light, right? Capture main shapes, right? And go back and fix things, okay? Make things darker if you messed anything up, okay? That's in the beginning, okay? So just keep doing that. Okay guys, so the last exercise for today, and this one works much better for not overly simple objects. So objects like my sphere, my cone, this exercise is probably not going to be the best for, but you can certainly do it. But if you're going to be using any of your other objects, these kind of things, right? I want you to work on this exercise. And this exercise is called blind contour drawing, right? So earlier I was talking about contour, meaning the outline of an object, right? The main edge of the form, right? A blind contour means you are only going to look at the object and not at your paper. You're not going to look at it at all, okay? And these drawings tend to look funny, they tend to look silly, but what's great about them is that they really force you and your eyes to stare at what you're looking at. And that's something that takes a lot of practice and a lot of training, because most of the time we're not used to just staring at inanimate objects for a long period of time, right? We get bored, why we're gonna do this, right? And if we are staring at them, we're gonna probably zone out. So a blind contour drawing forces you to stare where you're drawing at and actually study it, look at it, right? Figure out how it just looks. Every little nook and cranny, you're studying it, okay? So put one of your objects in front of you. I'm gonna go with my candlestick this time. It's a little more of a challenge for me. So I'll put it in front of me, okay? And then I'm gonna orient my paper how it's supposed to be. So I'm gonna go with vertical, so it's a vertical object, okay? And I have my pencil. I'm gonna put my pencil down once. Now the pencil I'm gonna put down wherever my eyes are gonna start, right? Now since this is a pretty tall object, it doesn't make sense for me to start in the middle, right? Because my eyes and the pencil are gonna have to move up and then down. I'm gonna start at the bottom, right? I'm gonna start, so my pencil is gonna match where my eyes are, and my eyes are gonna be at the bottom part of this candlestick, okay? Now I'm gonna put my pencil down at the bottom of my paper, and I'm going to be staring at the bottom of my candlestick, and my eyes are going to move up until I've looked at every part of the candlestick. As my eyes are moving, my pencil is moving. You aren't going to pick up your pencil from your paper until you've completely finished, okay? Don't pick it up, because as soon as you pick it up, you're not going to find your spot again, okay? So it's going to be basically one continuous line. So what happens if you're on the left side of your object and you jump over to the right? Just draw a line across. Don't worry about it, okay? It's gonna be one seamless line, right? So your hand is moving wherever your eyes are moving, okay? Once you're done, then obviously you look at the drawing. It'll probably look a little funky. Let's see how mine's gonna look, okay? Just trust this process. And I recommend doing it with all of your objects, right, at some point, just because again, it gives that good practice, okay? Don't cheat yourself. There's no point in making these look good. They all look silly, right? If you really want to see some funny ones, just literally Google blind contour drawings, right? The ones of people are the best, right? Because people's eyeballs are like all over the place. It's pretty funny. Okay, so I'm gonna start. And these can go pretty fast. You can spend as little or as much time as you want. So I'm gonna start. I have my pencil down, right? And I'm staring at my candlestick. And you're gonna notice my eyes are not gonna leave that. I'm never gonna look down at my paper, okay? And if your pencil for some reason goes off the paper, like the page, right? Don't worry about it, just find your way back on the page somehow. Don't stop. Okay, so I finished. You guys can take a look, right? Is this perfect? Absolutely not, right? This is not what like a regular drawing would be. But at least it's showing me, right, that I have a pretty good way of controlling my where my hand is, right, with where I'm looking, right? And that is the whole point, is matching your hand and your pencil with what you are seeing, okay? So I always recommend is actually starting all your drawings this way. So before you begin any of your objects, like do all those practice exercises, do basic drawings of just capturing the main shapes. But then when you're ready to like kind of really develop one of these drawings, before you started, try one of just a blind contour, right? And then new page, right? New page in your sketchbook, and then try drawing that exact object now by capturing the main shapes, doing all those things, measuring, finding where the midpoint is, okay, and developing it from there, okay? Awesome.